Teamwork isn't just nice to have in business, it's the undisputed competitive advantage. When your team members work as a unified force, your whole operation benefits through higher productivity, thriving creativity, and unstoppable momentum. Welcome to the Impactful Teamwork Podcast, where we share with you strategies and tactics to help you develop game-changing teams so that you and your business can make a real difference in the world. Teamwork isn't just nice to have in business, it's the undisputed competitive advantage. When your team members work as a unified force, your whole operation benefits through higher productivity, thriving creativity, and unstoppable momentum. Welcome to the Impactful Teamwork Podcast, where we share with you strategies and tactics to help you develop game-changing teams so that you and your business can make a real difference in the world. Welcome back to Impactful Teamwork. My name's Julia Felton, and I am going to be your host and guide for the next 20 minutes or so as we delve into yet more about everything teamwork. And today, it just seemed very appropriate that the topic that we should look at is lessons from the Paris Olympic Games. I don't know about you, but I have been pretty mesmerized and transfixed to the Olympic Games for the last couple of weeks. We've seen some incredible results of teamwork, collaboration, some heartache throughout the games. And I think the games are just a real testament to what can happen when we put in a plan and we really focus and we get results. As the Olympics comes around every 4 years, unless of course it's a COVID year, where we're on a 3-year cycle, and this year was held in Paris. And I think we can probably all agree that without exception, these were just phenomenal games. And the Olympics just provides a great stage, doesn't it, for everyone to come together and demonstrate the best of their ability. But it does also provide us with this great lens of looking at what are the lessons that we can take away from these amazing athletes that we can apply to business and how teams operate. As I was just been reflecting back, I've just watched the closing ceremony. I think we got some really great insights into leadership, teamwork, innovation, and resilience. All of these lessons which can be translated back into the business world. So I thought today I would examine probably 7 critical lessons that we could learn from the Paris Olympics that I would really encourage you to look at to see if there are ways that you can adopt these in order to improve the performance culture and outcomes within your team. Because I'm pretty sure that we can agree that the Olympics is perhaps one of the most competitive and dynamic environments that most athletes will find themselves in. And I think just the environment of everything being for one point in time is quite a good mirror for what's going on in business. Because again, I think we can all agree we live in a very dynamic, volatile world. It's pretty competitive out there. You never know whether your business is going to succeed in the long term or not. And definitely what I do know to be true is if you don't adapt and change, your business won't stay competitive in the long term. And I think when we look at a number of the athletes, some of the athletes there for their 3rd or 4th Olympics, I think Tom Daley, he was there for his 5th Olympics, inspired by his son, Robbie, who wanted to see him dive in an event. So some Olympians coming back and back, probably showing us, for one thing, age is no object when it comes to achieving your goals and desires. And also, I think the Olympics has also shown us that these athletes put their focus into this one particular event. But what I was really heartened to hear on a lot of the debriefs, and particularly this came through strongest for me from the British athletes, but a number of athletes from other countries also talked about this, was the fact that actually there was so much gratitude for whatever medal they got. Because yes, you put your time and energy and focus into wanting to get gold. Of course, that's what every athlete will want to achieve. But also a recognition that when you've done your best, you've got your personal best, you've done absolutely everything you can. If gold is unachievable, it's unachievable in that moment. So this is about the journey and not necessarily the destination of that gold medal. And one that really stood out to me was Adam Peaty when he got his silver medal in the breaststroke by, what was it, 0.2 of a second. It was such a tiny fraction which he lost the gold by. And obviously he was out there trying to defend his gold medal. And what I was so impressed by was his gratitude and thankfulness that given everything he'd been through, he had actually even managed to get to the Olympics and to get a silver. That was a win for him in his mind. And I think that was really important too. An important lesson we can take away is it's not always about the final result. Sometimes it's about the destination. So as I step back and reflect on the Olympics, I pulled together, as I said, 7 lessons that I'd like to share with you that I think might be really relevant for your business and working in your teams. And number 1 is the power of preparation and planning for success. So I think it's really evident, isn't it, when we look at the Olympic Games, the sheer amount of hard work and preparation that goes into each athlete's performance. And Olympians spend years training for their moment on the world stage. And they meticulously plan every detail of their regime, the diet, the mental conditioning, their physical conditioning. So there's a whole load of planning, strategic goal setting, and continuous improvement that goes into this. And I think probably we tend to focus on when we think about Olympic success is about people's physical prowess. But again, at this Olympics, I heard a number of people talking about their mental agility to get into the game and have the right mindset that they were going to achieve. And one particular one that shows up for me is a British cyclist called Sophie Capewell, who was always taught by her dad, never aim for third, always aim for gold. And her father actually, if I'm correct in recalling this, had been in the Paralympics and never actually got a medal. So he would always instilled into Sophie, go get the best you can. And actually the GP cyclist team sprint that Sophie was part of actually smashed the world record. So this is the importance of thinking about having a mindset that is not limited, that any possibility is open to you. And I think when we approach life with that level of optimism, that something is possible, even when all the odds might say it's not, then you never know what you can achieve. And there's another athlete that comes to mind here, which is the British 1500 meter athlete who got gold, who actually hadn't even been running previously. She got inspired during lockdown and watching the Tokyo Olympics to get back into running, something she had loved when she was a child. And she said actually on her interview that if she thought 3 years ago that she would be getting a medal at the Olympics, that was just so far-fetched. But she went out there with some determination and resilience, and that's what resulted. So when we're thinking about the power of preparation, as I said, it's mental preparation and also physical preparation. And we saw a lot of athletes obviously having to tailor their training programs to think about the conditions, the venues, the climate, and the time zone. Because obviously people coming to Paris from all across the world, we actually had a pretty warm Olympics over that. We had some really warm weather in Paris. So that suited some athletes better than others. Others needed to train at different altitudes, perhaps to be able to acclimatize. So there's so much preparation that goes into getting somebody to the Olympics. And one particular example, I was watching the marathons right at the end of the Olympics on the last couple of days. And Of course, those marathon runners went out early in the morning to try and minimize the impact of the temperature and the humidity. But one particular thing that I really noted about this marathon race was the fact that there were quite a few hills in there. And I don't really remember seeing too many marathon races where there's such steep inclines as they had in this particular one. And this is because in Paris, they wanted to take the marathon out to Versailles, and that involved kind of crossing a ridge. So the marathon runners had to get accustomed to going up and down hills. So that was part of the preparation for any of those marathon runners, was to get familiar with not only running on the flat, but running some inclines. So what's some of the lessons that we can take away for business? I think that the fact that preparation is really critical, and that companies that plan strategically and adapt their strategies to the market conditions are more likely to succeed. And this involves not just setting the long-term goals, but also breaking them down into actionable steps, just like an athlete's training program. And of course, this involves regular reviews and adjustments so that we can stay on track and adapt to the unforeseen challenges. So businesses must engage in comprehensive planning and be ready to pivot whenever necessary. And it's this level of preparation that can make the difference between success and failure. So lesson number 2, how about teamwork makes the dream work, collaboration and unity? And the Olympic Games is not just about individual glory. It's also about teamwork. And one of the things that I really valued hearing in Paris was in the debriefs from all of the athletes, where so many of them thanked their incredible support teams. Because yes, you might be the athlete out on the stage, but we can't do it alone. And all the dietitians, nutritionists, body workers, coaches putting the plans in, logistics, each individual athlete has such an amazing team around them. And so it was really important for the athletes to recognize that they couldn't do it alone and they needed that big team support. And of course, that's the same in business. And in Paris, we saw lots of examples of teams coming together to achieve extraordinary results through their collaboration and trust and shared goals. And again, one that stands out to me was the GB men's 4x200 freestyle relay team in the pool, because they were defending their gold medal. And I really loved a quote that I wanted to share with you, which was from one of the team members, Duncan Scott, who said, "When we come together as a team, it's really special. I'm just so proud of how we all swam our legs." And then he refers to Jimmy, who was part of the team who did his best time since 2015. Also Tom and Matt, who brought it back so strong. I'm buzzing with that. So there's this recognition within a team that everybody in the team needed to work together to achieve that success. And what I particularly love is the fact that each of the team members was celebrating the success of everybody else. And I'd like to contrast that to a radio interview that I heard that was analyzing the disqualification of the US 100-meter relay team. And what Roger Black, the commentator, was saying on this particular debrief was that in the US team, there isn't as much collaboration and partnership and wanting success as your team members as perhaps there are in other teams. And he said, particularly in that US 100 meters team, there is so much competition between all of those athletes. You've got to imagine when they all come together in one team, if they were all running in a race, they'd all be competitive against each other. My takeaway and my interpretation of his comments were that there was a lot of ego in that team. And it was all about competition rather than collaboration. And as a result, they got disqualified in one of, as I believe it's in one of the baton handovers, just because they hadn't put in enough practice and didn't have enough preparation because they were all doing their own thing. So I think that's really important lesson for us to take away. So the lessons for business are all about building a strong team culture, because I think we can probably all agree the importance of teamwork can't be overstated. And a team works well together when there's clear communication and mutual trust. And this building a strong team culture involves fostering an environment where members feel valued, understand their role, and are committed to the collective goals. So successful teams thrive on collaboration and shared goals. And so it's really important for us as businesses to invest in team development and improving the communication strategies within our teams, because that can have a massive impact on performance and the overall results of the business. Lesson number 3, innovation under pressure, embedding and embracing change. So what we often see in the Olympics are new innovations coming in, things that we haven't seen happen before in how athletes approach what they're doing. And athletes are always attempting to innovate and adapt under pressure. And I think that's one of the hallmarks of Olympic success. And there's a great lesson there for us in business. And so in the Paris Olympics, we saw athletes, as I said, introducing new techniques and strategies that gave them a competitive edge. One that we've seen happen over perhaps the last decade now, maybe a shade longer, is the British cycling team, because they have continued to put in cutting edge changes in terms of aerodynamics to the bike, but also in terms of the routine, the outfits, the Olympic wear being worn by the athletes on the bike, the shape of the helmets. So many things have been happening in British Olympics that have been making a massive change to performance. And as we have seen over the last decade or so, British cycling has got to the forefront of the sport. And it's been through a 1% change, what we call Kaizen change. It wasn't about doing one big thing. It was doing by lots and lots of small things, just a tiny change. But it's this compound effect of a 1% change magnifies and actually makes a big change. So I really encourage you to think about, what is one small change I can make in my business, which in that moment as of itself might not look like much, but will compound over time and actually make a massive difference. So I think the lesson for business here is about this encouraging innovation and agility, because innovation is a key driver of growth and competitiveness. And companies that encourage this innovation are really going to make a lot of difference in the long term and stay ahead of the game. And we only have to look at companies that haven't embraced change over the years. And we've referenced them before. Companies like Kodak, like Nokia, like Blockbuster haven't moved with the times and so have become obsolete. Lesson number 4, resilience in the face of adversity and overcoming challenges. And I think we can probably all agree that the road to the Olympics is fraught with challenges, from injury that competitors have to intense competition. Yet it's this ability to overcome these challenges that defines for me what an Olympian is. And we need this same resilience in the business world, where there are challenges and setbacks. They're just inevitable. And the Paris Games showcased numerous stories of resilience. And one that really stands out to me is Katarina Johnson-Thompson, a British heptathlete. This was Katarina's 4th Olympics. She had never won an Olympic medal before. Her career has been fraught with injury, and I believe it was a really bad Achilles tendon injury. She nearly quit the sport on a number of occasions, but she had such grit and determination to come back. And she actually achieved silver in the women's heptathlon, literally by a tiny margin to the woman who had won the heptathlon for the last 2 years. So the woman that won, a Belgian lady, she got her 3rd Olympic gold medal in the sport. Pretty unheard of. She's at the top of her game. And Katarina literally just missed her by 8. They said it was something like 5 or 10 centimeters if you translated that into a javelin throw or a long jump. So the narrowest of margins, but she really is, for me, just an example of somebody who's overcome such challenges to get to where she wanted to. She had that focus. She prepared herself. She kept going in that face of adversity. and got the silver medal. And her complete delight at getting that was just palpable during her interviews. And so in business, resilience is a critical trait that enables companies to weather the storms, whether they're economic downturns, competitive pressures, or internal challenges. So it's really important that we cultivate a resilient workforce where our team members are encouraged to persevere, learn from failures, and continually strive for improvement. So, as business leaders, that means we need to encourage a mindset that views challenges as opportunities for growth and development so that we can always ensure that we bounce back stronger from our setbacks. Lesson number 5 is all about diversity and inclusion and strength in differences. So, Olympic Games brings together athletes from diverse backgrounds, cultures, and experiences. And that's what I love about this. But I think this diversity is not just a hallmark of the Games, but it's also a source of strength and innovation. And in Paris, we did see some mixed teams working together for one of the first times. Although one of the things I just want to point out is that often we have men's and women's events. And it did occur to me that the equestrian event, or one where we always have mixed teams. So in the equestrian, men and women in the dressage, the 3-day event, and the show jumping actually all compete against each other. So that was really fascinating that in the equestrian industry, all of those events are always multi-gender. And of course, we did have some hype in some of, I believe it was the boxing, where there were some issues about whether transgender people should have been in the boxing ring. But I think overall, the Olympics is just such a source of diversity and inclusion. And for business, I think we really need to learn the importance of harnessing diversity for innovation, because diversity and inclusion are critical factors in innovation and creativity. And companies that embrace these diverse perspectives are more likely to generate innovative ideas and solutions. And an inclusive workplace is better for attracting and retaining top talent, leading to improved performance and employee satisfaction. Number 6, I just wanted to talk about the importance of mental health and supporting well-being, because the Olympics Games got a lot of attention at the Tokyo Olympics when Simone Biles, who is a gymnast, withdrew from the event due to mental health. And she did that because she really felt that she couldn't stay spatially aware while she was in the air doing her events on the vault, for example. And that was dangerous to her and health. And we saw her come back this year and achieve 3 golds and a silver. But what I did notice again was a lot of athletes discussing quite openly some of the pressures that they face being Olympian and the importance of their mental well-being. And again, I looked to Adam Peaty, who has openly shared about some of his own challenges around his own mental health in the years leading up to the Olympics. And again, in his interview, how happy he was with when he'd achieved the silver and how that was just such a massive accomplishment from him from where he had been a few years back. And I think it's really interesting and perhaps refreshing to hear these Olympians talking about the importance of being a mental health and really bringing that onto a stage where it's a topic that for many years was quite taboo, is now people feel that they can talk about that with each other. And I think with the athletes, we really saw them emphasizing that their mental health was as important, if not more important, than their physical health in achieving peak performance. And actually, as I understand it, the Games saw enhanced implementation of mental health support for participants, overall reflecting this trend that we have throughout the world of the importance of recognizing people's well-being. The lessons for business, it's really important for us as employers to prioritize team member well-being. It's really critical. And for a number of reasons, not because it's just the right thing to do, but it also enhances productivity, employee engagement and retention. And we see a lot of companies having mental health initiatives, such as providing access to promoting the work-life balance and fostering this supportive environment. And these are really critical for us to retain a healthy, motivated workforce. Question to you is, are you creating that environment, that psychological safety where team members feel that they can talk about their well-being without this stigma or fear of reprisal? And number 7 is thinking beyond the immediate, the legacy and long-term impact. And the concept of legacy is really deeply embedded in the Olympic Games. Obviously, we saw Tom Cruise there right at the end, and with the Olympic flag being taken from Paris to the next venue, which is LA for 2028. But host cities have to invest a huge amount of money in infrastructure, social programs, and environmental initiatives that extend beyond the games and create a lasting impact in their communities. So here for London 2012, we saw the O2 arena all being constructed for the Olympics. And what I particularly liked in Paris was their whole aspect of sustainability and the way that they created venues within venues. The aquatic center, the swimming pool area, that was a custom made pool that was put inside the Stade de France, which is their rugby stadium. They actually created quite a lot of temporary structures in Paris in order to accommodate the games. These were incredible, but I think it talks to the sustainability of what they were trying to achieve in the Paris Olympics. And the other thing I really love was the way that they used venues for multiple activities. So week 1 had one activity in, and then week 2 had a different activity in. So that was the use of multi-use stadiums. Again, I thought that was great because it gave the opportunity to start creating a really sustainable games. The city was really committed to reducing its carbon footprint and creating lasting sporting facilities and enhancing public spaces that really exemplified and drew in the whole history of Paris. There were amazing things happening in front of the Eiffel Tower or Notre Dame. I think it was the beach volleyball was right near, I think it was the Eiffel Tower. And you could see all these amazing icons in the background, which really made a difference. So there's some lessons there for business about focusing on sustainable growth. Because in business, we really need to think about the longer term, what Simon Sinek calls the infinite game. And how do we create value that extends beyond those quarterly profits and focus on the long-term impact, whether through that's environmental sustainability, social responsibility, or innovation. And I think it's this legacy-focused approach that ensures that a company not only thrives today, but also contributes positively to the future. And that then also brings in a broader community and environment aspect into business. And a bonus tip I'm just going to share because I just feel like doing it is the final tip is never, ever give up. Every stroke counts. And I just felt I couldn't finish this podcast without making reference to this because in business, things don't always go away, but we never know the outcome. And certainly for any of you that own your own business, small business owners, and in any type of business can get rough. Things don't go to plan. We get setbacks. But my word of encouragement to you would be never, ever give up. And I just want to talk about the GB women's quadruple sculls team, because if anyone watched that boat race, the British team was losing to the Dutch team, literally for 1,199 meters of that race, 2,000-meter race. Literally, we were behind them, literally every single stroke. And we won in a photo finish on the last stroke by 0.15 of a second. That team of women never, ever gave up. They believed that despite all the odds they were behind, that they wouldn't secure gold. Or maybe that's what they thought. But I guess in their minds, they always believed they were going to be winners. And they did. And it was the last stroke, literally the last stroke, that got them to that gold medal position. My encouragement and also my takeaway from the Olympics is this fact that as business owners and business leaders, we must never give up. We never, ever know when success will happen. And often it's at that time of massive adversity when we don't think it's going to happen that it comes along. So in conclusion, how can we apply these Olympic lessons to business? So I think we can perhaps all agree that the Paris Olympics was more than a spectacle of athletic achievement. it provided loads of insight into how businesses can apply the lessons to enhance operations and team dynamics. From the power of preparation and the importance of teamwork to the value of innovation, resilience, diversity, mental health, and legacy. These are all lessons that are universally important for our business. And by embracing these principles, we can make our businesses stronger, create more cohesive teams, foster innovation, and create this lasting change. So my invitation to you today is, which principles are you going to engage in your business? How are you going to apply the lessons that you learned from the Olympics to your business? Because I think there's such an opportunity here for us to look at the way we do things differently going forward to get a different result. I'm sorry, it's been a bit longer than usual today on the podcast, but I really hope you found that insightful, some of these lessons from the Olympic Games. I know I've really enjoyed the last 2 weeks, not quite sure what I'm going to do today now that there's no Olympics to watch, but I hope you have an amazing week. And I'd love to hear from you about what resonated from you from this podcast and what you might do differently in your business as a result. So have an awesome week, and I'll catch you next week. Bye-bye. Thanks for listening to the Impactful Teamwork Podcast. Please stay tuned for future episodes and do subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating on your favourite platform. Recommendations are essential for attracting new listeners. Please follow us on social media at Julia Felton and at Business Horsepower. And if there are any topics you'd like us to cover on future episodes, please do let me know. Remember, you and your team are always making an impact. What impact will you make today? Thanks for listening to the Impactful Teamwork Podcast. Please stay tuned for future episodes and do subscribe wherever you get your podcasts. If you've enjoyed this episode, please leave a rating on your favourite platform. Recommendations are essential for attracting new listeners. Please follow us on social media at Julia Felton and at Business Horsepower. And if there are any topics you'd like us to cover on future episodes, please do let me know. Remember, you and your team are always making an impact. What impact will you make today?